right, welcome back to episode number 2 of The Shit Show. And we have Ashley Hanna here talking about some crazy stories in the real estate world. If you didn't know, real estate's easy, but if you listen to some of these stories, you will maybe think twice about getting that license. Anyways, Ashley, you were talking prior to going live here on the show about a crazy story that you had in real estate, which there's many stories. Go ahead and tell us about that story and start to finish, make us laugh, make us cry. Let's get this thing moving.
So I had this listing and I helped these folks buy the house as well, just over a year prior to when I took on their listing. The couple was getting a divorce, boo-hoo. But I like them to call me when they get a divorce because, you know, I could help them offload some assets. The wife has already left out of state, so I'm dealing with the husband, and he reaches out to me. He needs to sell his house. I'm like, great. We go through the listing agreement about like, oh, of course you're on time with all your payments. There's no reason why you wouldn't be able to sell this house or you wouldn't have the rights to sell this house. And we laugh about it. We go over the seller net sheet, which shows what they're gonna get back at closing. So he was very excited to see that number based on what they bought it for. We were going to be able to sell it for a little bit more. It was a growing market. This was right before COVID. We were on the market a few months, about 9 months before we ended up getting an offer. And I think everything is all hunky dory. And I get a call from the closing attorney that said, I'm working on the closing and she tells me the address. I'm like, And she said, did you know it's set to be sold on the courthouse steps in 30 days? Your client hasn't been paying their mortgage and it's in foreclosure. You know, I'm kind of a baby real estate agent still. So like, I really didn't, I didn't understand the foreclosure process. I didn't understand like the timelines involved and the different steps, right? Because there's several steps that happen and notices that are given, right? So I called the attorney and she was like, I go, are we sure that he knew? She goes, the sheriff literally put a bright orange sticker on his door last week. And I was like,
yeah.
I was there last week and I didn't see it. Are we sure we're talking about the same address? And sure enough, yes, talked to my client again. And I'm like, so this is going to change that seller net sheet. Remember how you wanted that amount that I showed you, you were going to get at closing if we close at this, sales price? And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how much do you owe? And he was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have, interest for the interest, the late fees, the late penalties. Everything is going to be compounding from the day that he stopped making that payment to that seller net sheet. And his net proceeds are going to be getting less and less and less and less. Not to mention, he just jacked up his credit because for a foreclosure, if it's a legit foreclosure and the proceedings start and they do auction it off or whatever, or they give it back to the bank, it's a sheriff's deed, what that takes over. It's 7 years for conventional financing for a foreclosure. So, ouch. That's all I got to say. Okay. So he says he didn't know. And then as soon as you told him about the net proceeds, let me guess, he was very upset because
he was like, yeah, he was like, well, when, how can we find out? And I'm like, we gotta call the bank. Like, we have a contract. We have buyers that are going to be homeless, sir, if we don't get this sorted out. Like, this can't, we have to get permission to allow this sale to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need any paperwork you've gotten. And he, of course, couldn't find anything, but I find out who the foreclosure attorney is. I talk to foreclosure attorney. I get the paperwork that I need to get signed so my seller can sign me the rights to represent him to the bank to try to get the contract we have in hand accepted by the bank. Come to find out, because I asked for I finally got a statement from the bank on what he owed. He owed more on the house than when we bought it.
Oh my God. You ended up fighting for this guy. You got his home sold, correct? Finally?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
How many months was it from start to finish? Would you mention 9 months?
I think it was like the whole thing said and done was like 10 months. And we were only delayed like from the original buyer contract by like 30 days from our original.
Really?
And I told the buyers, I'm like, y'all could walk. And they're like, we don't have anywhere to go. And like COVID, like I said, COVID was getting ready to happen. So people
Right.
were pulling their houses off the market. Their house had already sold. I'm like, y'all could come stay at my house. I'm like, I'm trying to help these people out. I felt so bad. I mean, these weren't my clients, the buyers weren't, but like, I mean, we're in this business not because we care. We want to help people get in homes. We want to help our sellers make money. And my seller had been dishonest and was affecting another family. And
Right.
that isn't fair. And I get that. And so I just wanted to help. And, you know, that's my seller was not my favorite person. Not every client we have is always amazing, and there's things going on that we don't always know about. But,
Yeah,
you
for sure.
know, I mean, we're just trying to do the best we can at the end of the day.
From that transaction to fast forward for today, you have been in the business quite some time now. You've had a lot of experiences. What are like the most common misconceptions that you think people have about you as a realtor?
We don't get dirty, right? Like we're here just to like, oh,
Open
take some,
doors?
yeah, open doors, pictures, and look at this pretty house and look at that pretty house. But like when push comes to shove, I've been scrubbing floors in houses. I have been taking out bags of trash and loading them in my car on closing dates because sellers left a bunch of garbage in a house. I mean, like, if you have a real estate agent in your corner, not only do you have someone that's going to, guide you through the process, make sure you understand all the paperwork because, I mean, it's a lot of paperwork and you have to make
Yeah,
sure
it
you know
is.
what you're signing. But they're also going to be there when maybe things don't go as planned and, something happens at the house and you're out of town and you need them to, step in or
Sure.
see, I'm in foreclosure and I need
You got to go to
somebody
court.
to help me. So,
No, I mean, we get beat up. I get calls, and it's usually when when escrows renew and stuff. Like I've multiple calls from not just one client, but from many clients, and
yeah,
you know, well, and it's funny to me, and I'm just going to be brutally honest with the client. Some clients call and that they don't pay attention to their taxes going up or their insurance going up or anything like that, but then they call and want to beat me up because their payment went up. Well, look, your principal and interest is never going to change. That will never change. The only two variables in a mortgage payment are your taxes and insurance. That's it. So, pay attention to your bills, people.
yeah,
I hate to say it, and some people may get offended by me saying that, but no, that's your mortgage. I do say that, you could have an escrow shortage or an underage. And what that is an escrow shortage or under is, taxes and insurance. And the lender tries to do its best as possible at closing to get as close as possible to make sure that your escrow account doesn't have too much or too little in it. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And then when tax bills change or when insurance policy premiums change, they have to collect for it. Who's ultimately responsible for it, and that is you, the borrower, the owner of that home, contractually, right? The owner of the home. So it's your responsibility to make sure that is taken care of. And usually when there's an overage and underage, they're going to cut you a check. If it's an underage, if it's an underage, you're going to have to either true it up at
yep,
to make one lump sum payment to make it whole. And if it's an overage, then yippee, you're gonna take a vacation because you're gonna get a check back from them. So, but yes, we do get beat up from time to time when it comes to
I feel like
things like
lately
that.
too, because I feel like insurance is something that we're seeing that a lot in the headlines, right? Insurance and taxes go in North Carolina. They do assessments every,
Four
you know,
years. It's every
yes,
4 years in
yeah,
North Carolina. Yeah.
and so every time that happens, they reassess your property value. And the most recent one, a lot of people's property values went up, which means that they're
The
going to
payment
owe
goes up.
more, right?
Right.
And then the same thing with insurance. That's what I told a client that you and I both had. He called me freaking out, and I was like, "Your insurance on your home went up, but so did everybody's."
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
insurance went up big time for a lot of people.
yeah,
So
I'm like, there was just flooding in Western North Carolina. And honestly, this has been something we've been grappling for a while. So, like, be aware of it and try to pay attention to those things.
right,
Shop insurance if you want to
sure.
when it comes up.
Yeah, but just don't get too cheap because if you don't get good coverage, then they're not gonna replace your home if like Western North Carolina.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah. So, anyways, Ashley, that was an incredible story. Thank you for sharing. I know I've heard a lot of your stories, and that's just one of them, and there's many more where that came from. So, tell me, how can people find you? You have an awesome Instagram page. So, tell us where they can find you in addition to Instagram.
So I am always on Instagram, Ashley Hannah Murphy. I'm terrible at TikTok, but you can find me there. I don't know my TikTok name, so never mind. My
All
website
good.
is ashleyhannahmurphy.com. You can find me there. My email, Ashley at Hannah Home Sales. Shoot me a text. We'll put my contact info in the show notes. Thank you so much for having me, Angelo. You're amazing.
Absolutely.
This was like old
Thank you.
times.
I know, just like old times. And if any VA clients are out there and have not made their mortgage payment in, 6 months and you're trying to sell your house, Ashley is a veteran at getting those closed. So holler at her if you have any questions.
I don't know that okay.
uh,